Ben.
Yeah, I'm Ben, I'm a recovered addict.
Hey, Ben.
Thank you for everyone being here, making it possible. I'm happy to tell you my story. The Four Horsemen, I knew them really well at the end of my drinking and drug using career. Knew them too well. But to start at the beginning, I was born into a very volatile, alcoholic environment of abusive parents. But that's no excuse why I ended up where I was, or that didn't define me. I was quite a happy-go-lucky young child. I was very lucky to have a good friend who, whenever home life was too much, I'd spend an awful lot of time at their house, which was where I needed to be. And then slowly moving into teens, as people do, you go to a house party. I remember the first drink really well, and it might have only been 4 or 6 cans of lager, but for a 13-year-old, 4 or 6 cans of lager, it really hits the spot. And it was the way I drank, you know, it was an instant whack, and I was extremely into that. And it was only a occurrence every weekend, every other weekend, maybe once a month. But looking back, there were traits there that I was yearning for, something that it ticked the box for me. It really did. I never knew my limit with alcohol when I drank from that age to when I stopped drinking. I'd always go to the excess. And then moving a bit later into my teens, as young people do, you have a first love. When it ends, you're very heartbroken, but that's when drugs were introduced to me. A good friend of mine saw the state I was in and said, "Come on," went to a friend's house who were in a garage and did a lung of weed. Instantly hit the spot, you know, all the pain inside I was feeling just disappeared. That was it for me then. Good 18 months, 2 years, complete pothead. But I was at college, what you do at college, bumbling along. Then come New Year's Eve, maybe 2001, 2002, I'm not sure which year it was. Went clubbing uptown, took pills and cocaine. Wow, what an experience, you know. I can't say anything else. It was the best experience ever, as it always is the first time you use drugs like that. And I must have had 3 years of every weekend just hammering drugs. But it was good times, as Bill Higgs once said. Didn't rob anybody, didn't rape anybody, didn't lose a job, laughed my ass off and went about my day. Life was good, no consequences. Then spent a summer in Ibiza, didn't wear a shirt for 6 months, thought life was great. But then there was some health complications because your body can't push that many pills, you know, day in, day out. So, come back from Ibiza. By this point, alcohol's crept in more, but I was more of a just class A, cocaine and alcohol and some weed at the end of the night to try and get to sleep. So, ended up getting a job. Because of the health implications, I had to stop taking pills that just weren't suiting my body anymore. But then alcohol, I was replacing what I was doing at the weekend with alcohol. Slowly but surely, you know, sort of 4 or 8 cans a night wasn't enough. In the daytime, I'd be bored, I'd be irritable, discontent. So I know, you know, there's an off-feed not far from work. I'll have a couple of cans at lunchtime. Didn't see any problem with it. I had quite a mundane, boring job. Could still function and do my job. Time went on, and that was just the norm for me, you know. Drinking a couple of cans at lunchtime, 4, 6, 8 cans in the evening. It wasn't really an issue. Again, there was no real consequences of my actions because I was only in my sort of mid-20s. Fast forward maybe a year, 2 years, my job had stepped up a level, and at the same time, my dad passed away, and at the same time, I met the missus of my children, who, with everything coupled together, I took her hostage. You know, I didn't realise I was doing it at the time. Remember, met her on the internet. Do you take drugs? No. Do you drink? Only on occasionally. You know, what a fucking load of bullshit. And this girl was straight-laced, didn't ever touch drugs in her life, barely drank, and I've just took her hostage because I'm upset my dad's died. Life's not exactly going well, but that, you know, that's what I did at the time. But then progressing forward from then, all of a sudden my alcohol intake, my weekend cocaine use and my daily marijuana intake had just skyrocketed. And throughout my life, there's been a couple of green lights that I thought were green lights. In my early 20s, when I said the cocaine and ecstasy were really full on. I got arrested, and I think I had 10 pills on me, maybe an eighth of coke, maybe half an ounce of weed, some base, because we were going into global gathering. And then I've got a caution. So in my mind, I've got a green light. You know, that's okay. I've got this sussed. I'm cleverer than they are. Then fast forward to when I'm at work, I've dropped a bag of coke and a bag of weed, going up the stairs, and the gaffer's pulled me in because it could only be me. And he said, "You've got a lunch hour to do what you want to do. I'm not having it on my premises." So I've walked out of his office thinking, fucking hell, that ain't bad, you know, I'll take that. Again, a green light for me. So the way my delusion was working, that I've got a drink problem, I've got a drug problem, but I got away with it when I was a bit younger. My boss is now saying, yeah, it's okay. I was flat out, absolutely no problem. Then slowly, as the weekends were coming, I then started to drink in the mornings. You know, it wasn't enough knowing that it's a Saturday morning, I only got to wait till lunchtime. It was 9 o'clock, well, Mrs. is asleep, I'll have a can, no problem. Then I was realising I really like morning drinking because it gives you quite a kick. So then it was sort of, I was getting up earlier and earlier, so sort of 6 o'clock in the morning. Shop over the way, he'd sell out of date alcohol for 50p a can. Even better, this is getting cheaper and I'm getting more of what I want. As it progressed, as I'm getting a bit older, I've come home one Friday night and I'm already really fucking steaming. And the missus has said, I'm pregnant. And it's a real shame that I have to look back. You know, there's regrets of my youth. I don't regret a lot of it because it made me who I am today. But, you know, apparently my face was, fuck, no. And it wasn't the fact that how we can have, it was going to get in the way of my using without a shadow of a doubt. And that was my issue with, we're going to have a baby. So it was like, right, when the baby comes in, I'll calm things down, you know, just let me have the next 9 months to enjoy myself. Because by this point, she knew what I was doing, not to the excess. Then come labour, it's a horrific labour, 4 days, but then I'm making all about me. You know, I've got to watch this, I'm going through it, and I'm doing nothing. You know, there's not many women in this room. If you've ever had gas and air, I'm either in the toilet doing a line, I'm in the car park drinking beer and smoking weed, or I'm on the gas and air. And when you have enough gas and air, your mouth waters. And when it waters, it fucking hits the spot. So for 4 days, I'm absolutely obliterated. You know, baby's born, and it's like, I've got such a headache from doing all this gas and air and fucking cocaine. I'm like, I've got to go home then. And she's had 4 days of no sleep. And I'm going to the car to sleep, whether I was or wasn't. So I've just left this, my missus, going home, so then I can use more and hopefully get some sleep, which I did. So by this point, I'm getting the consequences of my drinking are getting quite real because we've got a young baby in the house, and obviously my missus doesn't want that, but I can't see the wood through the trees. You know, I'm then trying to hide my drinking, and I think I'm being clever about it and getting away with it, but I wasn't too clever. Fast forward, we've got another baby. And then the consequence of my drinking, you've got to get out of the house. You know, you can't be around the children in the state you're getting in. And my sister arrives, and it's my own blood saying, look, I want you out of the house. And the delusion I was under when I'm not listening to the words that a blood relative that cares about you, she helped raise me because my parents didn't, it's telling you, you've got to go away and get better. You're not doing this the way you should do it. I've started to manipulate a situation, because I was very good at that, to there's things about her relationship, and she's got children, and the stuff I know I shouldn't know. So I'm using that against her to try and just deflect the attention off myself, so I can just carry on using, get her out of my house. She hasn't really got a say in this. I pay the bills, And looking back, the way I did manipulate her and manipulate my missus to that point of using something I know that my sister's got all sorts of issues because of upbringing, but then to do with life itself, the alcohol and drugs had such a grip on me that I'd lost all reality, who Ben was. This joyful young child that I once was, he's long, long gone. I thought he was buried and done with at this point. And it's got to a point where I know my missus can't leave the family home because she can't afford to do it, so I think I'm winning again. And then my drinking and using's got worse, to the point where I'm picking my kids up from school or nursery, and, you know, I think I've used some eye drops, or I've brushed my teeth, I've got some aftershave on, I'm okay, you know, this will be fine. And it only takes one whiff of one teacher or one parent, and all of a sudden the social services involved, there's no children left in my life. And with my missus wanting to leave me, I could sit there and say, right, I promise you then I'm not going to do it. And with the mental twist and the blank spot the way it is, it could be half an hour later. I'm thinking I've got a good idea. I'll pop to the shops and I'll just have one crafty can. And then I've done that. And at this point, I'm not wise or I'm not well enough to be thinking clearly enough to go, what are you actually doing with yourself? You know, you're really dicing with people's lives, people's futures, and your own, but my own future, and that it didn't come into any, you know, it didn't enter my mind. Slowly, as the consequences got worse of my drinking and my using, I've completely changed. You know, the person sat in front of you today, you wouldn't recognise physically, the way I'm talking, absolutely anything to do with, you know, who I am. I couldn't understand. I got to a point where I was so fed up with my actions and that I always drank, I always used drugs, that every night I'd go to bed and I'd say to myself, tomorrow is a new day, you're not going to do it. You know, you're not going to do it. And when you're high on drugs, or you're pissed out your brain, or you couple them both together, you probably think you can do anything. You know, you will believe you can do that. Come the following morning, if I've woke up and not had a spliff to sort of calm myself, I've done well. If I've got to 10:30 in the morning without hitting the drink or drugs, I've done really well. But by 11 o'clock, I think to myself, okay, you deserve one. And there's the mental twist again. I've forgotten about not only the consequences I'm causing and hurting these people, what I said to myself, because really it doesn't matter what anyone's told me, you know, it's not what I'm telling myself. But then I'm like, I can just have one. Today will be different. And the moment that drink has passed my lips, instant satisfaction. Or the moment the drugs have gone up my nose, or I've smoked something, there it is, I'm better. And for the life of me, as I did it, I'd go, right, that's all I'm having today. By the time that can's finished, oh, do you know what, I really need another. So I'd either have more in the fridge or I'd have gone to the shop. And I could never understand what was my problem. Why can I only have one? You deserve it. Because if you only had one beer in the day, yeah, it's not really a good idea, but if you could just stick to having a beer a day, we wouldn't be sat in this room, wouldn't need each other if that's what we could do. And I was a serial relapser for maybe 2 years, towards the end of everything. I did that day in, day out, and I beat myself up so badly, you know, doing that. And I'd accepted that, okay, this is the future for me, because every night I've got a strategy. I say to myself, right, there's going to be no beers in the fridge. And then whether there's beers in the fridge or not, I'd find one somewhere under my car seat, in a shed, fucking in a cupboard, or, right, I'll go to the off licence. And then it never occurred to me, you've got 3 off licences, Ben. You have the ones you buy in the mornings, ones to buy in the afternoon, ones to buy in the evening. Because you can't, you know, look at you. It's just madness where I put myself. And it was just total norm. It was just the total norm. And then, as the consequences of it all just got so much, I've ended up in an AA meeting, and I'd accepted that this is my future. These people aren't going to have a solution for me. There isn't a solution because I was just uneducated. I didn't know. But now, looking back, and now I've got God in my life because I didn't before, I would have, if I was about to have a car crash, I'd go, please God help me now. Well, he's not going to fucking chuck down a bolt or something and stop you having a crash, is he? You've got to work at something. But I do believe in divine intervention. I was meant to be sat in that room, sat in that chair, because I was sat next to my sponsor. And everyone's doing a share and talking. And I thought to myself, right, say something. You're going to say it. And I was going to talk about what a good dad I am because I provide for them. They've got a roof over their head. They eat well. They've got clothes. They've got this. They've got that. And as I opened my mouth, and I was blessed, it was a spiritual experience. I didn't know it till a few days later. I had an out-of-body experience, and it was the first time I've ever looked at myself, and I could see who I'd become. You know, that little boy, he was fucking not in that room. And I was disgusted with what I saw. And the truth came out of my mouth. And thank God it did, because my sponsor sat next to me, heard me. And I had the desperation of a drowning man. I really did. And he saw that. And I afterwards had a chat with him and looking at him and similar stories. We look different though, but I thought, and I'm looking at this guy and he's well dressed, he's got a glint in his eye, he's happy. Wow, what's your secret, you know? And he said, you know, there's a 12-step program. You've got to start somewhere. You're powerless over alcohol. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm powerless over alcohol, because for the last 2-3 years of my life, I've sworn blind. You know, forget swearing on your kids' lives. I swore to myself. I meant it. I'm not going to do that in the morning. Could never do it. And that's where my journey started. And I'm so glad it did, you know. And anyone who hasn't done the step work, get on with it, because step 1 and 2 and 3 are conclusions and decisions you can make. And it's pretty easy to self-diagnose. If you're in this room, you're probably in the right place. Step 4, before I did my step 4, I had an awful lot of people saying, "Oh, eat, oh, watch what you're doing." The people that say that either haven't done a step 4 or didn't finish their step 4, because step 4 set me free. For the first time, you know, I didn't realise how it was working. I just had all this information that I've got to tick and put things in boxes and make notes. And then my sponsor gave me a piece of paper and he said, "Look, I haven't manufactured this. These are words that you've just said, and I've just highlighted things you said." And every box, no matter what I had a resentment for, fear for, it's like, fucking hell, this is, you know, there's similarities popping up in every one of these. The crux of the problem is me and my thinking, how I'm dealing with life, how I'm not dealing with life. And then 5, 6 and 7 and 8, no problem. 9, get out there and start making amends. That little boy I talked about, the family who brought me up and raised me, I went to make an amends with them, and when I turned up, they weren't quite sure why I was there, and there were so many occasions. I was on drugs, I was this, I was so disrespectful. And at the end of it, they said, "We're looking at the little boy we once knew." And for me, you know, bang, it was like, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in all my life. And not every amend went really well. It didn't, you know, life's not perfect. And then moving forward, living daily in step 10, 11 and 12. Thank God I do, because for 9 months I've been clean and sober. I was a serial relapser and something happened, had a spiritual experience, worked my program, and I'm still clean and sober. But step 10 is really important for me, because life is shit, life can be great. You know, my sponsor said to me, "You have a good feeling, wait a while and it will pass. You have a bad feeling, wait a while and it will pass." You know, and recently, quite a lot going on. Few areas I'm taking my foot off the gas. All of a sudden, maybe little resentments are creeping in, little character defects are starting to show. Putting it down, I'm at step 10. All of a sudden, I've spotted it. I thought, fuck, I've heard it so much. Not, you're going to relapse. It's not that you're going to relapse. But am I in the middle of a fucking relapse? How do I know? Unless I've got a clean house and I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be, how the hell do I know if I'm in the middle of a relapse? And thank God that, I'm doing my step 10 and my meditation, but it's the step 10 that was so important, because I spotted it. I thought, fuck, I need to change what I'm doing, because how do I know if I'm in the middle of a relapse? Until 3-4 weeks down the line, if I'm lucky, you go, what's just happened? And if you even get to that, because the way my drinking and using was towards the end of it, I might not even know if I'd come back. And then being able to sit here in front of you guys, you know, it says we're probably getting more out of this than you are, and that's where you need to be. That's where I need to be. You know, I need to stay humble, need to do my prayer and meditation. Step 10, very important, especially at the moment, and then trying to help others and work with others. And the life I lead today is just, it's beyond any wildest fantasy. I've never had less money. I've never been in more sticky situations financially or life, whether it's because now I'm sober and straight, I noticed them, and before I just blotted it out and was like, that's, you know, oblivious to what's going on around me. But none of it makes you happy. None of it made me happy. Didn't matter how much I might have or how little I had, I still felt the same at the end of the day, like shit on a come down. Now, You know, someone asked me before, how do you sleep at night? And family members would have asked that. They go, on a pillow. How do you sleep? Fuck off. Now, if someone can say to me, how do I sleep at night? I say peacefully. You know, I don't do any harm. I'm not upsetting anybody. Thursday, so much going on, and I'm trying to find things to feel grateful for. You know, pick myself up, and then I looked at my children and thought, I'm not being selfish. I'm not drinking. Yeah, I'm not drinking. I'm not using. So that's all I can tell you really, is where I've come, you know, where I am today, and I'm just so blessed that I found CA, and I'm able to tell you my story, because life was shit, and life can be hard at times, but at least I'm not making it harder. But yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. No clapping, please. No clapping. No clapping. Thank you.